Chapter 8 Description of Kashya Vansh. Pururava's son Ayu had been married to Rahu's daughter. They had 5 sons: Nahush, Chaturvedi, Rambh, Vraji and Aniina. Suhotra was the son of Chaturvedi. He had 3 sons: Kashya, Kash and Gritsamad. Shaunak was the son of Gritsamad, whereas Kashya was the son of Kashya. Lineage of Kashya grew as Kashya, Rashtra, Diyadakpa, and Dhanvantari. Dhanvantari's body was free from all the physical faults like aging and diseases. Dhanvantari's lineage grew as Dhanvantari, Ketuman, Bhimrath, Daibadas and Pratirdan. Pratirdan was also known as Shatrujit because of his conquering his enemies. Since he had acquired a horse named Kulavai, hence he also came to be known as Kulvayashava. Pratirdan had a son named Alaka who enjoyed his rule on earth for 66,000 years. Lineage of Alaka continued as follows: Sanneti, Sunit, Suketu, Dharmaketu, Satyaketu, Vibhu, Suvibhu, Sukumar, Dristhaketu, Vitihotra, Bharga and Bharghumi. It was progeny of Bharghumi who gave rise to 4 classes of people. Chapter 9 Description of King Raji and his sons. King Raji had 500 prowessive sons. Once at the beginning of battle between the demons and the gods, they appeared before Brahma and inquired as to which part would win. Brahma said that only that part would win which would be aided by King Raji. First the demons approached Raji and requested him to fight from their side. King Raji stipulated that he would fight only when the demons agreed to appoint him as their Indra. The demons told him that Prahlad was their Indra and returned. Then the gods also approached King Raji and requested him to take their side. Raji put the same condition before them also, to which the gods agreed. In a fierce battle and aided by King Raji, the gods defeated the demons. After their victory, Indra bowed before King Raji and expressed his desire to present him with the kingdom of heaven. Thus King Raji became Indra. After the demise of Raji, Narada instigated his sons to acquire the rule of heaven. All the 500 sons of Raji approached Indra and requested him to give them the rule of heaven, but Indra refused plainly. At that Raji's sons dethroned Indra forcibly and themselves became Indra. After much time had passed, Indra approached Brihaspati and prayed him to help him regain the rule of heaven. Brihaspati assured him that he would soon establish him at the throne. Afterwards Brihaspati created illusions in the minds of Raji's sons. He also conducted many yagas to increase the radiance of Indra. Guided by the illusions, Raji's sons began to behave in anti-religious ways. Then Indra easily killed them all and regained his designation. Chapter 10 Tale of Yayati. Nahush had 6 sons: Yati, Yayati, Sanyati, Ayati, Vyati and Kriti. Yayati had 2 wives, Devyani, the daughter of Shukracharya, and Sharmishta, the daughter of Vrishpava. Devyani gave birth to Yadu and Turvasu, whereas Sharmishta gave birth to Druheyu, Anu and Puru. Because of a curse of Shukracharya, old age had descended on Yayati prematurely. Yayati then requested his eldest son Yadu to exchange his youth with his old age, but Yadu refused. Then Yayati requested each of his sons one by one, but all of them refused plainly for the fear of getting old prematurely. At last Yayati's youngest son Puru gladly accepted his request and gave him his youth. Regaining the youth, Yayati once again indulged in carnal pleasures with both his queens. But every day his desire for pleasures increased like a fire flared up by ghee. After 1000 years Yayati realized his mistake and decided to expiate for his sin. Thus, Yayati returned Puru his youth and acquired his old age once again. Then crowning Puru as the king, he took an exile to the forest. Chapter 11 Yadu Vamśa and Tale of Sahasrarjun. Yayati's eldest son Yadu had 4 sons: Sahasrajit, Kroshtu, Nala and Nahush. Sahasrajit had a son Shatajit who had 3 sons: Haihaya, Hehe and Venuhaya. Lineage of Haihaya grew as Dharm, Dharmanetra, Kunti, Sahajit, Mahishman, Bhadrashrenya, Dodab and Dhanak. Dhanak had 4 sons: Kritvirya, Kritagni, Kritdharma and Kritoja. Kritvirya had a prowessive son Arjuna. Arjuna had worshipped Dattatreya and by his blessings acquired 1000 arms. Since then he came to be known as Sahasrarjun. Dattatreya had blessed him with many other boons like rule of entire earth, fostering of his subjects in religious ways and killing by some human being famous in all the 3 worlds. At that time, there was no other king equal to Sahasrarjun in virtues. He ruled the entire earth for 85,000 years. Once Sahasrarjun was enjoying his pastime on the waters of Narmada when he happened to have an encounter with Ravana, the king of Lanka. Sahasrarjun captured Ravana easily and imprisoned him at an isolated place in his kingdom. With time, ego of Sahasrarjuna had crossed all limits. He began to terrorize the sages and other religious people. When his atrocities increased beyond tolerance level, Lord Vishnu took a partial incarnation as Parshuram, the son of sage Jamdagni and Renuka. As per the prediction of sage Rishik, Parshuram grew with Kshatriya-like virtues. He had in fact taken incarnation to relieve the earth from the atrocities of egoist kings. Parshuram had received arms training from none other than Lord Shiva. He was very obedient to his father and had beheaded his own mother by the Parshu axe that he had received from Lord Shiva at the dictate of his father. In due course, Parshuram not only got Ravana released from captivity but also killed Sahasrarjun. Sahasrarjun had 100 sons, among whom Shor, Shasna, Vrishsena, Madhu and Jayadhvaj were prominent. Jayadhvaj had a son Taljuga. Taljuga had 100 sons, among whom Vitihotra and Bharatha were prominent. Bharatha again had 100 sons, whereas Madhu also had 100 sons, among whom Vrishni was prominent. After the name of their forefather Yadu, this clan came to be known as Yaduvamsha. Chapter 12 Description of Kroshtu Vamsha. Lineage of Kroshtu grew as follows: Kroshtu, Dwajnivan, Swati, Rushanku, Chitrarath, Rashibindu. Rashibindu had 1 lakh queens and 10 lakh sons, among whom Prithusharva, Prithukam, Prithukirti, Prithuyasha, Prithujay and Prithushan were prominent. In their lineage later on occurred a king named Jamad. He was so dedicated to his wife Shavya that despite being childless, he did not dare to marry other women because of her fear. Once, Jamad took part in a fierce battle in which he defeated all his enemies. While he was about to return, he heard pitiable cries of a woman. He saw a beautiful young lady who was crying for her protection. Jamad was so infatuated by her beauty that he took her to his kingdom. When they reached at the gate of the palace, the king saw that the queen Shavya was waiting for him along with a big crowd. When Shavya saw a beautiful young lady sitting beside the king on the chariot, she began to shout at him. The horrified king tried to explain that the young lady was his daughter-in-law. The queen shouted even louder that when they did not have a son, whence the daughter-in-law came. But the king explained that he had selected a wife for her would-be son. As the effect of their conversation, Queen Shavya soon conceived and gave birth to a son in spite of her advancing age. They named the son as Vidarbha. In due course of time, Vidarbha got married to that lady whom his father had brought home earlier. They had 3 sons, Krut, Kaushik and Romapa. Romapa had received preaching from Narada. Lineage of Krut grew as follows: Krut, Kunti, Grishti, Nigriti, Dashad, Vyoma, Jimut, Vikriti, Bhimrat, Navrat, Dasharath, Shakuni, Karambi, Devrat, Devakshatra, Madhu, Kumavansh, Anu, Kurumitra, Anshu, Satvak. Satvak was the forefather of a clan that was named after him. Part 5 Chapter 1 Puru Vansh. The lineage of Puru grew as Puru, Janmejaya, Prachinvan, Pravir, Manasyu, Abhyad, Sudayu, Bahugat, Sanyati, Ahamyati, Rohidrashva. Rohidrashva had 10 sons, among whom Riteshu was the most prominent. Riteshu had 3 sons, among whom Apratirath was most prominent. Lineage of Apratirath is as follows: Apratirath, Aileen, Dushyant and Bharata. King Dushyant had fallen in love with Shakuntala, the daughter of sage Vishwamitra and Apsara Menka. They got married secretly in the forest, and after a few days, King Dushyant returned to his kingdom, promising Shakuntala that he would call her as soon as he reached his palace. He had given Shakuntala his ring as a memento. But while Shakuntala was crossing the river on her way to the palace, the ring slipped from her finger and was swallowed by a fish. In the absence of the ring, King Dushyant refused to identify Shakuntala. So, she returned to the hermitage of sage Vishwamitra and gave birth to a child who later on became famous as Bharata. Bharata had been very progressive since his childhood. His first meeting with King Dushyant was also very dramatical. It is said that once King Dushyant was hunting in the forest and he saw a boy who was counting the teeth of a lion. Impressed by the bravery of the boy, the king inquired about his parentage and reached the hermitage where sage Vishwamitra narrated him the whole story. Meanwhile, a fisherman had also recovered the ring from the fish and handed it to the king, who had thus recalled the whole story. In the hermitage, King Dushyant came to see Shakuntala and he candidly accepted her and his son Bharata. Bharata had 3 queens and 9 children. Since none of the children resembled him in features, he expressed his doubts about their paternity. Fearing the wrath of Bharata, his queens killed all the children. Then, with a desire to have a son, Bharata organized a Marutsoma Yagya. As a result, he got Bharadvaj as his son. Bharadvaj's second name was Vitat. His lineage grew as follows: Vitat, Manu. Manu had many sons like Brihatkshatra, Mahavir, Nara, Gerd, etc. Their lineage grew as follows: Nara, Sanskriti, Gurupriti and Rantidev. Gerd had a son Shini who became famous as Gagya, and Shanya also. Mahavir lineage is as follows: Duruksha, Trayaruni, Pushkarinya and Kapi. In the lineage of Brihatkshatra occurred a king Hasti who founded the city of Hastinapur. Hasti had 3 sons: Ajmer, Dwijmer and Purumir. Among the sons of Ajmer were included Panchals and a daughter Ahilya. Ahilya was married to sage Gautam. They had a son Shatanang. Satyagriti was the son of Shatanang. Once Satyagriti happened to sight the extremely amorous and beautiful Apsara Urvashi. Her mere sight was enough to cause the ejaculation of his semen, which fell on a reed and divided into 2 parts. From these 2 parts were born a boy Krip and a girl Kripi. King Shantanu discovered Krip and Kripi in the forest and brought them to his palace. In later course, Kripi was married to Dronacharya, the teacher of Kauravas and Pandavas. Ashwatthama was the son of Dronacharya. One of the kings named Kuru in the lineage of Ajmer established the sacred region of Kurukshetra. Chapter 2 Description of Kuru Vamsh. In the lineage of Kuru, there occurred a king Pratip. He had 3 sons, Devapi, Shantanu and Vahlik. Devapi had taken an abode in the forest in his childhood. Hence Shantanu came to become a king after their father Pratip. Once in the kingdom of King Shantanu, there was no rainfall for 12 years. Perplexed by the continuous drought-like situation, Shantanu consulted learned Brahmins. Brahmins informed him that he had no genuine right on the kingdom, which in fact belonged to his brother Devapi. They also told him that as long as Devapi was not fallen from his supreme position, the drought would continue. Alternatively, handing over the kingdom to Devapi might also result in the end of the drought. Then Shantanu's minister Ashmasri appointed certain Brahmins who always spoke in anti-Vedas ways. Their continuous preaching disinclined Devapi's mind from Vedas. On the other hand, one day, King Shantanu proceeded towards the forest along with Brahmins and his courtiers to hand over the kingdom to Devapi. There the Brahmins tried to convince Devapi to accept the honors of the kingdom. They were citing anecdotes from the Vedas to corroborate their argument. But Devapi criticized Vedas and spoke in anti-religious ways. At that, Brahmins instructed the king to return to the kingdom, as there was no use to convince Devapi. They also assured Shantanu that since Devapi had been disinclined from Vedas, he had lost his right to the kingdom and the famine would also come to an end. Shantanu's younger brother Vahlik had a son Somajukta. Buri, Burishrava and Shalya were the sons of Somajukta. In later course, Shantanu got married to Ganga and had a son Bhisma. From his second wife Satyavati, Shantanu had 2 sons Chitrangad and Vichitravirya. Chitrangad was killed by a Gandharv, whereas younger Vichitravirya was married to the princesses of Kashi, Ambika and Ambalika. He was so busy in carnal pleasures with his 2 wives that soon he contracted tuberculosis and died. Despite their indulgence in carnal pleasures, Ambika and Ambalika could not bear a child from Vichitravirya. Hence, in order to continue their lineage, Satyavati inspired Ambika and Ambalika to appear naked before Veda Vyasa and beget a child. Since Ambika closed her eyes while she appeared naked before Veda Vyasa, she begot a blind son, Dhritarashtra. Similarly, Ambalika grew pale when she appeared naked before Veda Vyasa. Hence she begot a son Pandu who was congenitally afflicted with jaundice. Not satisfied by the outcome, Satyavati once again persuaded Ambika and Ambalika to appear naked before Veda Vyasa. But the queens sent a maidservant Vinita before Veda Vyasa. Vinita appeared naked before Veda Vyasa without any fear or shyness. Hence she begot an extremely wise son Vidura. In later course, Dhritarashtra got married to Gandhari, the princess of Kandeha, whereas Pandu received 2 wives, Kunti, the daughter of Shursen, and Madri, the princess of Madra. Dhritarashtra had 100 sons and a daughter Dushala. Duryodhan was the eldest among the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. Pandu on the other hand had 5 sons, among whom Yudhishthira was the eldest. All the 5 sons of Pandu were born with the help of 5 gods, Dharma, Vayu, Indra and Ashwini Kumars, because Pandu was carrying a curse that he would die if he ever tried to copulate. Pandu's 5 sons Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakul and Sahdev came to be known as Pandavas. 5 Pandavas were married to Draupadi, the daughter of Panchal king Drupad. From Draupadi each of the Pandavas had a son. Their names were Prativindya from Yudhishthira, Shrutsen from Bhima, Shrutkirti from Arjuna, Shrutenik from Nakul and Shrutkarma from Sahdev. Besides them, Yudhishthira had a son Devak from Yodai. From Hidimba, Bhima had a son Ghatotkach, and from Kashi a son Sarvak. From Vijaya, Sakdev had a son Suhotra, whereas from Renumati, Nakul had a son Nimitra. Arjuna was the most prowessive among the Pandavas. Apart from Draupadi, he had 3 more wives: Ulupi, who belonged to the Nagas, Chitrangada, the princess of Manipur, and Subhadra, the sister of Lord Krishna. From these 3 wives, Arjuna had 3 sons: Hiravan from Ulupi, Vabruvahan from Chitrangada, and Abhimanyu from Subhadra. In the battle of Mahabharata, all these sons of the Pandavas fought valiantly and sacrificed their lives. It was Abhimanyu's son Parikshit who continued the lineage of Pandavas and ruled the earth till right now. Chapter 3: Incarnation of Lord Krishna. Vasudeva, the son of Shursen, was married to Devaki, the daughter of Devak. On that occasion of their marriage, Devaki's cousin Kansa was driving their chariot. At that time, a celestial voice declared that the 8th son of Devaki would kill Kansa. Kansa, in the excitement, was ready to kill Devaki then and there, but Vasudeva convinced him, saying that he would himself hand over all his children to him. Thus assured by Vasudeva, Kansa dropped the idea of killing Devaki. When the marriage of Vasudeva and Devaki was taking place, Prithvi approached Brahma in the guise of a cow. She complained to Brahma that population of mean-minded people was increasing and that she was not more able to bear the burden of their anti-religious deeds. Prithvi said, "O Lord, the same demon Kalnemi whom Lord Vishnu had killed in his previous birth has taken incarnation of Kansa, the son of Ugrasena. Many other fearsome demons, Arishth, Dhenuk, Keshi, Pralam, Sanda, Banasura, and many more have taken over the rule and tormenting the religious people in many ways. They keep million-strong forces. I am unable to bear their burden. So kindly do something to get me rid of this burden." Hearing the words of Prithvi, Brahma said to the gods, "Prithvi speaks the truth. Indeed, she is carrying too much burden. Let us all go to the shore of Sarga and pray Lord Vishnu and intimate him about all this matter." Then, accompanied by the gods, Brahma arrived at the coast of Sarga and prayed Lord Vishnu. Pleased by their prayer, Lord Vishnu appeared before them in his universal form and said, "Brahma, believe my words and be assured that whatever you and these gods desire shall realize." Thus assured by the Lord, all the gods and Brahma prayed once again. Pleased by their prayer, Lord Vishnu plucked a black and a white hair from his head and said, "Both these hair of mine shall take incarnation on earth and remove the miseries that the people face there. All of you take partial incarnation on earth to attenuate the strength of the demons. This black hair of mine shall take birth as the 8th son of Devaki and kill Kansa, who is a reincarnation of Kalnemi." While this conversation was on, Devarshi Narada appeared before Kansa and informed him that Lord Vishnu would take birth as the 8th son of Devaki. Hearing the words of Narada, Kansa angrily put Vasudeva and Devaki behind the bars. There in his abode, Lord Vishnu instructed Mahamaya, personified illusion, to implant the 6 fetuses who were in Patal in the womb of Devaki, one by one. He knew that all of them would be killed by Kansa. Then he instructed Mahamaya to implant his part Shesha, who would appear as the 7th issue of Devaki, in the womb of Rohini, the second wife of Vasudeva, so that he could appear as her son instead of Devaki's. Lord instructed Mahamaya to appear in the womb of Yashoda in Gokul, while he himself would appear as the 8th issue of Devaki. He also told Mahamaya that he would take birth on the 8th day of the darker phase in the month of Bhadrapada, while she would take birth on the 9th day, and that immediately after his birth, Vasudeva would himself carry him to Gokul, and leaving me beside Yashoda, he would carry her back to Mathura. Chapter 4 Appearance of Lord in Devki's womb. As per the dictate of Lord Vishnu, Yogamaya implanted 6 fetuses in the womb of Devki. All the 6 children were killed by Kansa immediately after their birth. Yogamaya transplanted the 7th issue of Devki into the womb of Rohini, who was residing at that time in Gokul. Then Lord himself appeared as the 8th issue of Devki. Since the time of his arrival, radiance of Devki increased manifold. At the same time, Yogamaya also appeared as an issue of Yashoda in Gokul. Seeing the arrival of Lord himself as the 8th issue of Devki, the gods prayed him with devotion. Then on the 8th day in the darker phase of Bhadrapada, Lord took birth. At the time of his birth, the wind suspended its motion. The rivers attained extremely purified state, whereas dense clouds gathered in the sky and caused drizzling. Seeing the child born with auspicious swastik mark on his chest, Vasudeva recognized him and prayed him. At the same time, he and Devki also feared that Kansa would kill their 8th son also. So, they prayed the Lord to hide his divine appearance. Lord assured them that their ordeals would end soon. Then Vasudeva put the child in a winnow and started his journey on foot to Gokul, carrying the winnow on his head. Because of the influence of Yogamaya, all the guards fell asleep while the gates of the prison opened automatically. It was raining heavily at that time. So when Vasudeva reached in the open, Sheshnag spread its hood over him to shade the Lord from rain. In Gokul, Nand's wife Yashoda too gave birth to a girl child, but because of Yogamaya's influence she did not know anything about the birth. Vasudeva arrived there and putting Lord beside the sleeping Yashoda, he took her baby and returned to his prison in Mathura. As soon as the baby reached in the prison, she began to cry loudly. Her cries awakened the guards, who ran to inform Kansa about the child's birth. Kansa at once arrived there and snatching the baby from Devki's lap, he dashed her on the wall. But before he could throw the baby, she slipped from his grip and taking 8-armed Jagdamba's appearance, established in the air. Laughing loudly then, Mother Jagdamba said, "O Kansa, you cannot kill me. Your killer has taken birth. Lord Hari had been your death in your previous births. In this birth also he will kill you. So from now on, make efforts for your benefit only." Saying this, Jagdamba vanished. Worried by the words of Yogamaya, Kansa called a meeting of his prominent demons and said, "These evil gods have hatched a conspiracy to kill me. But being a brave man, I do not take these gods into account. You have yourself witnessed how Indra fled before the shower of my arrows. You would also remember how the clouds rained heavily in my kingdom when Indra had forbidden them from raining on a kingdom and I had pierced them with my arrows. All the things on earth except my father-in-law Jarsand bow before me in fear. I don't care for the gods. Even their efforts to kill me make me laugh. But still I must not take the word of Jagdamba lightly that my killer had taken birth. We should therefore kill all the children who have taken birth within the past few days." Instructing the demons, Kansa approached Vasudeva and Devki in the prison and released them, apologizing his cruel action in the way of killing their innocent children. Chapter 5 Killing of Putna and of other demons. When Vasudeva was released from the prison, Nand visited Mathura on some official trip. He also came to see Vasudeva. Vasudeva greeted him for the birth of a son and instructed him to return to Gokul as soon as possible. He also requested Nand to look after the son of Rohini as his own son. After meeting Vasudeva when Nand was returning, many kinds of thoughts were disturbing him. In the Gokul while Nand was away, an ogress Putna had stolen the little Krishna in the night and was breastfeeding him with her poisoned milk, But little Krishna sucked even her life through her breast. Making a loud noise and assuming a huge body, Putna fell on earth and died. Only then the village folk came to know about the incident. They also saw little Krishna sitting in the lap of Putna. The frightened Yashoda swept little Krishna with the tail of a cow to do away with all the bad omens. The other cowherds also prayed Lord Vishnu to protect the child from all calamities. Killing of Shaka. When Lord Krishna was 27 days old, a festival was organized in Gokul. Mata Yashoda bathed the baby while the Brahmins recited hymns. Yashoda saw that baby was feeling sleepy, so putting him in a cradle, she left it under a cart. The cart was loaded with pitchers of milk, curd and butter. After some time, Lord Krishna awoke and began to cry for a feed. But amidst festivities, Yashoda could not hear his cries. Meanwhile a demon Shatrasu rode the cart wishing to press the cart and thereby kill the Lord. But before he could act, the Lord touched the cart with his feet and lo and behold, the cart turned over and all the utensils kept on it came crashing down. Even the demon was crushed to death under the cart. Other boys, who were playing nearby, informed the gopis, ladies folk, that the little Kanhaiya had turned over the loaded cart, but they did not believe the kids. Yashoda ran in horror and lifted the baby in her lap. The Brahmins recited pacifying hymns then. Thereafter the baby was bathed again with sanctified water. A feast of Brahmins followed then. Ultimately they were seen off with many gifts. Salvation of Trinavat. Once Mata Yashoda was playing with the baby Lord in her home. All of a sudden she felt as if the baby was getting disproportionately heavy. Soon, she felt herself unable to bear the child anymore. So she left the child on the ground and began to pray Purushottam Lord Rama. Soon afterwards she forgot about the event, but all was not over yet. Trinavat, a demon minister of Kansa, had arrived in Gokul as a fierce cyclone. He covered entire Gokul with dust and blinded the people temporarily. For a moment people could not see anything and during that moment Trinavat blew the baby in air with him. When the dust settled, Yashoda did not find the baby Krishna where she had left him. She felt extremely sorry and fell on ground in depression. Other womenfolk also gathered round her. They too began to cry not seeing baby Krishna there. In the form of cyclone, the demon Trinavat had blown baby Krishna with him, but he too could not bear his heavy burden. So he began to lose his velocity. Lord Krishna caught him by neck. The demon died in a few moments and his dead body fell in Vraj. And Yashoda got a new lease of life when she saw baby Krishna safe and sound. Nand and other Gopas too were overjoyed. Naming of Lord Krishna. Once, the supreme ascetic Gargacharya arrived in Gokul. He was the ancestral teacher of Yaduvanshis. Nand joyfully welcomed and treated the hermit. Then he requested him to carry out the ritual of naming and suggest suitable names for both of his sons. Acharya Garg said, "O Nand, everyone knows that I am the ancestral teacher of the Yadvas. If I carry out the naming ritual for these boys, people will understand that they are Devki's sons." So Nand requested Gargacharya to name his sons secretly. Gargacharya accepted his request and carried out the naming rituals secretly in Nand's cattle shed. Garg said, "This son of Rohini will cause by his virtue great pleasures for his near and dear ones. So his second name will be Rama. And because of excessive strength, people will call him as Bala also. Since he will unite the people also, so one of his names would be Sankarshan." Thereafter, Garg said pointing to Yashodanandan, "He has taken incarnation in every age. In the past ages, he had taken white, red and yellow complexions respectively. This time he has taken dark complexion, so he will be known as Krishna. Once he has been the son of Vasudev, so people will call him as Vasudev also. He will cause salvation of all of you, and great joy for the fellow gopas and cows. With his help, you will overcome even the severe crisis. O nun, this boy will be equal to Narayana in virtues, wealth, beauty, fame and influence. Foster this child with care and earnestness. Thus naming the boys as per their virtues, Garg returned to his hermitage. Childhood of Lord Krishna. The time passed in Gokul as usual. Balram and Krishna too grew normally. Soon they began to walk on knees and palms. With their childish plays they both amused men and women folk of Gokul. Everyone took special care of them and looked after them to save them from any possible danger. Ladies folk were especially careful about them. Soon afterwards, both the kids began to walk trottingly. Now their movement no longer confined within the boundary of their home. Because of his special virtues, Krishna began to lead other kids of his age group, whereas his elder brother Balram was somewhat serious in nature. Krishna specially enjoyed teasing the girls and milkmaids of Gokul. Often he would eat stealing their milk, curd and butter. At other times, he did not hesitate even to break their pitchers. In such situations the ladyfolk used to gather in Nun's home to complain against Krishna. And every time Yashoda promised them to punish Krishna. But every time, when she proceeded to punish him, she forgot everything before his sweet, innocent smile. One day, Balram complained against Krishna, "Ma, the little Kanhaiya has eaten mud." Worried about Krishna's health, Yashoda scolded at him, "Tell me, O mischievous Krishna, why did you eat mud?" At that moment, little Krishna's eyes were moving with fear. He made an excuse, "No ma, I have not eaten any mud. They are telling you a lie. If you don't believe me, see yourself." Saying this, Krishna opened his little mouth. Yashoda peeped into his mouth and what she saw there amazed her. She could not believe it. The entire universe was visible in his little mouth. Yashoda saw strange places, entire Vraj and even herself in the little mouth of Krishna. She felt dizzy. With his illusionary powers, Lord wiped out the memory of this incident from the mind of Yashoda, and she again immersed in love with her child. Ukal Bandhan and salvation of Yamlajun. Once, wishing to feed Krishna with butter, Yashoda began to churn milk in the morning. Very soon, Krishna too awakened and not finding the mother on her bed, he set out to search her. Soon he found her in the courtyard where she was churning the milk. He began to insist for breastfeeding at once. So Yashoda stopped churning and began to breastfeed Krishna. Affection played on her face. Suddenly the milk kept on the fire pot began to boil. Yashoda left Krishna in order to attend the boiling milk. But the unstated Krishna filled with anger and broke the pitcher of curd. Then he went inside and began to eat butter. When Yashoda came back, she understood the matter and began to search him with a stick in her hand. After eating butter himself, Krishna was now feeding the monkeys with it. Seeing the mother come in hot pursuit, Krishna jumped over the motor and ran away. Yashoda chased him, but soon felt tired because of her bulky body. Thereafter, Yashoda proceeded to tie Krishna as a punishment. She got a rope and tried to tie Krishna. But the rope fell short by 2 fingers. She joined many ropes together but the result was same. Every time the ropes fell short by 2 fingers. Soon, Yashoda was bathing in sweat. When Krishna saw his mother in depression, he himself tied in the ropes. Tethering little Krishna to a heavy mortar, Yashoda engaged in usual household tasks. Tethered to the mortar, Krishna glanced at the two Arjuna trees, which were standing on the gate like two sentries. He resolved to save them. Maitreya asked Parashar about the trees. Parashar said, "The Lord of Wealth Kuber had two sons, Nalkubar and Manigriv. One day they were enjoying the sweet company of pretty women on the bank of Mandakini river. Just by coincidence, Devarshi Narada arrived there. Out of shyness, the women folk at once covered themselves, but both the sons of Kuber stood boldly without feeling any shame. Indignant Narada cursed them to become trees and stay in that form for 100 years. Narada showed kindness as well, that despite being in tree forms, they would have the memory of God alive and would be saved by Lord Sri Krishna. Thus, to keep the words of his supreme devotee Narada, Lord dragged the mortar to the two Arjuna trees. He walked in such a way that the mortar got stuck between the trees. Krishna then pulled the mortar, and in no time the trees were uprooted. Two divine men appeared from the uprooted trees and bowed at the feet of Krishna and prayed him with pure hearts. Then they departed to their heavenly abode. Migration to Vrindavana. The uprooted Arjuna trees fell with thundering sound. All the people shivered with fear and felt as if lightning had struck somewhere. All the elders, including Nand, met together and discussed the matter. Unanimously they concluded that, of late, disturbance had increased in Gokul and the circumstances were no longer conducive to raise the kids like Balram and Krishna there. So they unanimously decided to leave Gokul and migrate to a verdant place named Vrindavana. In their opinion, Vrindavana had ample vegetation and fertility to support them and their cattle. Thus, on an auspicious day, the entire population of Gokul set out for Vrindavana. They packed their households on bullock carts and drove their cattle in herds and started in convoy. In Vrindavana they built their houses and started their life once again. Parashar says, the verdant environment of Vrindavana, Govardhan mountain and crystal clear waters and sandy banks of Yamuna river together filled the hearts of Balram and Krishna with joy. Along with the fellow cowherds, they began diverse kinds of plays there. Salvation of Vatsasur. One day, Balram and Krishna were grazing their cattle on the bank of Yamuna river. A demon, meanwhile, took the guise of a calf and mixed with the herd. Obviously, he had malicious intentions. Lord Krishna had already seen the demon taking calf's guise and mixing up with the herd. He signaled Balram and they together reached near the calf. The calf appeared particularly healthy, so Krishna and Balram mockingly saw it with admiring eyes. Suddenly they held the calf with its hind legs and tail, twirling it in air. They threw it in the sky. When the demon died, they threw him on a cart, wood apple, tree. Salvation of Buxor. One day, all the cowherds took their cattle to a large pond to let them drink water. There they saw a huge creature sitting like a hillock on the bank. They were frightened by its appearance. The creature was in fact a demon named Buxor who had arrived there in the guise of a stork. He was himself very strong and had a long pointed bill. As soon as the cowherds drew near him, the stork hastily picked up Krishna and swallowed him. Other cowherds, including Balram, were stupefied. They could not believe their eyes. But inside the beak, Lord Krishna made him extremely hot and caused severe burning in demon's throat. So the demon could not swallow Krishna and regurgitated him, and began to hit him with his strong beak. But Lord held his beak with both his hands and tore the demon's mouth apart. And as soon as the demon died, a ripple of joy surged among the cowherds. Salvation of Aghasur. One day, Krishna planned a picnic near Nandanvan. So rising early in the morning, he awakened his fellow cowherds sounding a horn. Together, all the cowherds and their cattle went to the forest. There, on the bank of Yamuna river, they began to play joyfully. Nandanvan was in fact an abode of the demon Aghasur. Kansa had sent him there. Seeing the boys playing, he felt extremely jealous. Knowing that Krishna had killed his brother Baksur and sister Putna, it seemed an ideal moment for the demon to avenge the death of his siblings. Thinking thus, the demon took guise of python and lay in the way and opening his mouth like an opening of a cave. The cowherds too fell in his trap. Thus driven by curiosity, all the cowherds entered the demon mouth one by one. When Lord Krishna saw that his friends had entered demon's mouth, he too entered it to protect them. Aghasur wanted to masticate the cowherds including Lord Krishna, but the Lord increased his body and choked demon throat. Now the breath of demon stopped. His eyes rolled over and at last his life left his body through Brahmarandra, cosmic pore. With his ambrosial eye, Lord resurrected these dead fellows and their cattle and together they came out of the demon's mouth. As soon as the demon died, a divine flame emerged from the python's mouth. It waited there some time for God. And when Lord Krishna came out, the flame mingled with him. Attachment of Brahma, stealing of cattle and cowherds. Parashar says, the cowherds told the tale of Aghasur's salvation to their parents only after a year of the incidents. During that period of 1 year, Lord Krishna multiplied himself and took the guise of his fellow cowherd and their stock of cattle to remove the illusion of Brahma, who was the cause of the following incidents. After Aghasur's life mingled with God, Lord Krishna came with his fellow cowherd on the bank of Yamuna. They left their cattle to graze freely and they sat together to take their lunch. All of the cowherds tasted one another's food, as they wanted to feed Krishna with the tasty food. Meanwhile, surprised by Aghasur's salvation, Brahma too had arrived there and saw Krishna eating food defiled by the cowherds. With that sight, Brahma grew suspicious if Krishna was indeed an incarnation of Lord. Thus driven by the illusion and to test the authenticity of Lord's incarnation, Brahma kidnapped all the cattle first, and when Krishna went out to search the cattle, Brahma kidnapped and concealed the cowherds also. Soon Lord Krishna understood the craftiness of Brahma, so he multiplied himself into his fellow cowherds and cattle. Replicas resembled truly to the cowherds in appearance, complexion, nature, activities, wars, sticks and even in costumes. The replicas remain in existence for complete 1 year. Back there, when Brahma returned after hiding the cowherds and the cattle, he was stunned to see the cowherds and cattle as usual. Brahma was feeling dizzy when Lord bestowed his grace on him. Brahma saw Narayana in every dust particle. Brahma therefore bowed his head at the feet of Lord and said, O Lord, I submit before you. You can be one only with devotion and not by ego. No one can know your omnipresent appearance. Thus praying and worshipping Lord Narayana, Brahma returned to his abode. The cowherds remained separated from God for 1 year. But they felt as if only half a second had passed because of the illusionary influence of God. That is why they related the incidents of Aghasur's killing to their parents only after a year it took place. Salvation of Dhanyuksur. When Krishna and Balram entered 6th year of their ages, they got the permission to take the cattle out for grazing. Along with their fellow cowherds, the two brothers too began to take their cattle to Vrindavana. Thus they sanctified the earth of Vrindavana with their pious feet. Seeing the beauty of Vrindavana, with beautiful, colorful flowers and sweet fruits, Lord Krishna felt overjoyed. He then used to graze his cattle at the foothills of Govardhan and on the banks of Yamuna river. Playing flute was his favorite pastime. One day Krishna's beloved friend Sudama said, "Kanhaiya, there is a beautiful forest named Talvana. It has uncountable numbers of trees laden with ripe fruits. But a formidable demon Dhrenuksur guards that forest. He is very strong. So no one goes there. Even animals and birds shun that place. But we are tempted to eat those sweet delicious fruits. If you and Balram wish, we may go there and eat those delicious fruits." Thus hearing this, Krishna and Balram guided all of them to Talvana. There they shook the trees, and in no time a heap of ripe, delicious fruits gathered under the trees. All the cowherds began to eat fruits. While eating, they were also making lot of noises. Disturbed by the sound of fruits falling and noise of the cowherds, the demon Dhrenuksur arrived there as a donkey. He was braying loudly and tried to hit Balram, but Balram caught him by his hind legs and threw him in the air. The demon died in an instant. Since that day, everyone visited Talvana fearlessly and the cattle grazed there freely. Grace on Kaliya the Naga. One day, Balakrishna arrived on the banks of Yamuna with their friends. Balram was not with them that day. The water of the river Yamuna was intoxicated by the poison of Kaliya the Naga. It was exceptionally hot that day and all the cowherds and cattle were very thirsty. So without giving any thought, they all drank the water from Yamuna and died. But Lord Krishna resurrected them by his ambrosial sight. Then Lord Krishna decided to purify the waters of Yamuna. Thus tying a cloth round his waist, Krishna climbed a kadamba tree and jumped into the river. In the water the Lord started playing and splashing water. Soon the waves began to rise high. When Kaliya the Naga heard the noise, he got extremely angry and appeared before Krishna. He saw a beautiful, tender, dark-complexioned boy playing joyfully in the waters. He stung him and tied him in his spirals. Tied in the spirals of Kaliya, Lord became absolutely motionless. Seeing Krishna in death-like situation, all the cowherds and even the cows felt very sorry. Just then Lord freed himself from the hold of Kaliya. Then a game of hide and seek began between them. Lord dodged the Naga for a long time. Thereafter he rode on Kaliya's hood and began to dance there. The followers of God, like Gandharvas etc. began to play mridang, lol etc. to give him a company. Tired from the blows of Lord's feet, Kaliya soon began to vomit blood. Naga's wives began to pray God, "O Lord, your incarnation is to punish the evil ones for their sins. You have shown your grace on us also. We are fortunate to have a sight and touch of your feet. Pity, O Lord. This Naga can no longer bear your momentum. He will die. We are all your slaves. Kaliya is our Lord. Kindly forgive him." With kindness, Lord released Kaliya, who prayed thus, "O Lord, in your creation we snakes represent tamoguna, dark virtues. We are confused by your illusions." Lord dictated Kaliya to migrate with his family to Ramankadweep. Since then water of Yamuna became pure for humans and animals. Drinking of Davnal, forest fire, after defeating Kaliya, Lord Krishna and all other people of Vraj felt extremely tired. They were very hungry and thirsty also. So they did not go back to Vrindavana, but stayed on the bank of Yamuna in the night. Because of intense heat of summer, surrounding forests had been shriveled. At midnight those shriveled forests caught fire, and the sleeping people were engulfed by it. They awakened startled and took shelter at Krishna. Seeing their horrified appearance, Lord Krishna drank the infernal forest fire and thus saved the lives of innocent people who had rested their lives at him with faith. Salvation of Pralambasur. One day, Balram and Krishna were playfully grazing their cattle along with other cowherds in the forests. When a demon Pralamb arrived there with an intention of kidnapping Krishna and Balram. The demon had come in the guise of a cowherd, but the god easily recognized him. They accepted his proposal of friendship, but were thinking about the way for his salvation. God thereafter summoned all his friends and said, "Pals, today we shall divide ourselves into 2 teams and play joyfully." Thus the teams were divided and each team chose Krishna and Balram as its captain respectively. It was stipulated that the members of defeated team would carry the members of winner team on their back up to the place pointed by them. Thus the game began and soon both the teams reached a secluded place. At one time, the team headed by Balram won. So the members of Krishna's team were to carry them on their back. Demon Pralambasur offered Balram a ride on his back. Balram agreed to ride on the demon's back, but as soon as he rode on the demon's back, the demon galloped. But he could not go far for not being able to bear Balram's weight. Then the demon regained his huge formidable size and tried to escape by flying. First Balram felt terrorized, but soon he realized his real powers and hit on the demon's head with a powerful fist. The blow shattered demon's head and he fell on earth dead like a huge mountain. Parashar says, most of the time of Lord Krishna's boyhood passed in Vrindavana. There he grazed cattle and played flute. His flute had a divine, enchanting sound. The gopis used to gather around him drawn by the enchanting tunes. They also heard the enchanting Venugeet that fills one's hearts with the memory of Bhagavad. One of the girls said to her friend, "Oh dear friend, having the privilege of seeing Lord's beauty and receiving his kindness is the real salvation." Another girl said, "Oh friend, what penance this flute had observed that it has got a closer contact with lips of Nandanandan, an epithet for Krishna. Even the siblings of this flute, trees and other vegetations are pleased with its fortune and are hence showering their leaves and flowers on him." One more said, "Oh friend, look, even Bhagwati Lakshmi has left her luxurious abode in Vaikunth and arrived in Vrindavana to have a look of Lord Devkinandan." A gopi expressed her jealousy, "Even this doe is better than us, oh friends, look how engrossed is she looking at God that her eyes are not blinking." Hearing the sweet enchanting tunes of flute, even the heavenly elves gather in the sky over Vrindavana. They also see the beauty of Lord Krishna and showered the flowers of their braids on him. Even the cows forgot grazing when they heard the enchanting music of flute. The calves too forgot drinking milk and began to look at Lord Krishna with joy. This is the real devotion for Lord Krishna. You have to forget yourself in order to find him. Condition of girls of Vrindavana was exactly the same. After having the sight of Lord Krishna they remembered nothing, not even the way back to home. They stood in the forests in a trance, completely tired, unaware of their self. A girl said, pointing to the fauna, "Look, oh friends, look at these birds. Do you know that these birds were the saints and sages in their previous births? In this birth also they are sitting in a state of trance. Look, they have forgotten their knowledge hearing the sweet enchanting music of the flute. And look at Yamuna. She is also unable to contain her exhilaration. She is eagerly splashing her waves to wash Lord's feet." Yet another girl said, Look friends, the clouds cannot see their Lord scorching in the sun. So they have covered the sun and shaded Lord Krishna. Now they are drizzling as if showering petals. A girl said, friends, look, these villainies are better than us. They have such a strong urge of Krishna's side that when Govind returns home, they smear their body with dusts of his feet. Blessed is this mountain which has dedicated its entire self in the feet of Brajnandan and feels overjoyed. It is his supreme devotee. Kanhaiya has infused even non-living things with life by his sweet tunes of flute. Stealing of clothes, the unmarried girls of Vrindavana felt as if their lives were dedicated to Lord Krishna. Each of them wished heartily to have Lord Krishna as her husband. So in order to get their desire fulfilled, all of the spinster girls of Vraj began to take bath in Yamuna early in morning of Hemant season and worshipped goddess Katyayani. When Madan Mohan learned that the unmarried girls wished to marry him, he went to see them at dawn. The girls were bathing naked in the river. Their clothes were kept on the bank. Lord Krishna stealthily took those clothes and climbed on a kadamba tree. Lord had not stolen their clothes with malicious intentions. He had stolen them to remove their flaws and make them realize their real appearance, that they were not mere girls, but pure souls. Without realization of the real self, one cannot experience the God. The girls were, in fact, the hymns of Vedas, sadhana, siddhis, sages and Brahmvidyas, Vedas, themselves that took the guise of girls to enjoy the vicinity of God. God removed their clothes that symbolized lust. Because of the Lord's grace they all were able to enjoy God's company. Parashar says, O Maitreya, thus Lord Krishna removed the shyness of the girls of Vraj through his sweet talks. He derided at them, made them dance like puppets and even stole their clothes when they were bathing naked, but they did not deter his actions. Instead they felt overjoyed by the close presence of their beloved Kanha. Lifting of Govardhan, Parashar says, one day, Balram and Krishna saw that many delicious kind of sweetmeats were being cooked at home. With curiosity and politeness, they asked Nand and other elders, Father, which festival are you preparing for? Which god will be worshipped? What purpose will such worship serve? Nand Baba explained, Sons, Devraj Indra is the god of clouds. It is because of Indra's grace that we get rain. So these materials are being prepared to worship Indra. Krishna said, Father, every creature in the world enjoys comforts or suffers as per his fate. None of the gods can change the results. Action is primary in the world. One gets the results as per his actions. Even Indra is God as a result of his action. Anyone who performs 100 Ashwamedh Yagyas becomes Indra. But even after performing crores of Ashwamedh Yagyas, one cannot stay in Vraj. It is the duty of Indra to cause rain. So it will rain even if you don't worship Indra. But to feed the poor and satisfy them with clothes and other gifts is real worship. By their blessing, we shall be happier. I desire that with all these materials we should worship Giriraj Govardhan and distribute the prasad among the poor, with which their souls will be sated and will have the grace of God. Thus Lord Krishna told his father that all the people should worship unitedly and unitedly they should receive prasad. If you are ready to do as per my desire, it's all right, otherwise I will not worship your haughty God, nor receive his prasad. Worship of Govardhan and indignation of Indra. Thus convinced by Kanhaiya's wise reasoning, all the Gopas agreed to him. Nand Baba said, O Krishna, we are making all these preparation for you only and we will do as you say. We will worship Govardhan. For us Govardhan is also like a god. It gives us grass, water, and fuel etc., which are necessary for our lives. Thus with Lord's consent, they dropped their plan to worship Indra and resolved to worship Govardhan faithfully. On the Purnima, full moon, day in the month of Kartik, November, all the Gopas, people of Vraj region, gathered near Mount Govardhan. During the night all of them circumambulated the mountain. Lord invoked the Ganges by his wish and bathed Govardhan with her water. Then they put vermilion on it, offered basil leaves, flowers etc. and worshipped it. Brahmins recited hymns in its praise. To make the people believe in their rituals, Lord Krishna himself appeared on the mountain in huge form and exclaimed, "I am Giriraj, the king of the mountain," and began to eat the offerings. But as a child, he was still among the villagers who faithfully bowed before the mountain. Among them, the child Krishna said, "Look, what a surprise, Giriraj has appeared himself and bestowed his grace on us. He has accepted our worship." Thereafter all the Gopas distributed prasad among themselves and felt supremely satisfied. When Indra learned that the Gopas had stopped worshipping him, he grew outrageous. In anger, he ordered the clouds to rain torrentially over Vraj and cause heavy flood in Vraj region. In no time dense clouds gathered over Vraj. Soon there was lightning, thunder, darkness and storm all around. Then it began to rain torrentially. All the people took refuge at Lord Krishna and prayed him to save them from the anger of Indra. Lord Krishna said, "Those who regard me as their, are mine and I am theirs, so there is no need to worry for you." Saying this, Lord lifted Giriraj on his little finger and called all the people of Vraj along with their cattle under the lee of Govardhan. Then he ordered his wheel Sudarshan to absorb the water of the clouds so that not even a single drop could fall on earth. Thus for 7 days continuously Lord balanced Govardhan on the little finger. Thus Lord Krishna also came to be known as Giridhari. People who had gathered around him just kept on seeing Lord's moon-like face and hence did not feel thirsty or hungry. In fact, the comforts those people got during those 7 days are beyond verbal description. Lord held Govardhan on one hand, and conch in the other, while with the remaining 2 hands he began to play this flute. Hearing the tunes of his flute, all the people of Vraj began to dance with joy. After the rains stopped, all of them returned to their homes. When Indra learned about the happenings in Vraj, he soon realized his mistake. Indra himself reached Vraj and begged Lord for his pardon. Then he gave Lord a ceremonial bath with the milk of Sarga. For protecting the cows, the Lord also got one more name, Govind. Ras Leela Parashar related to Maitreya the tale of Kamdev's humiliation. The purpose of describing this tale is just that common people should reflect on the selfless love of gopis for Lord Krishna and experience the love of God for them as well. After conquering Brahma and other gods, ego of Kamdev had surged to great heights. He, therefore, requested God to quench his thirst for war. God invited Kamdev to visit Vrindavana on the night of Sharad Purnima, full moon night, in the season that precedes winter, and told him that on that divine night he would enjoy the company of crores of gopis. "If I have slightest passion for any of them, you will win, otherwise you will lose." That night Lord Krishna added more divinity, more brilliance to it with a resolution of ras with the help of Yogmaya, personified illusion. It was a perfect night for the purpose. Flowers bloomed in Vrindavana, full moon shone, and gentle, cool breeze blew from the banks of river Yamuna. Amidst this stimulating ambience, Lord Krishna began to play an enchanting tune on his flute. The tune attracted gopis. Their passion surged to its zenith, and under the influence of love for Lord Krishna and as if in trance, all of them ran to meet their beloved Kanhaiya, leaving all their fear, bondage, patience and shyness behind. Some of them were intercepted by their husbands and dragged back to home. But only their physical bodies stayed put, their souls reached Vrindavana. In Vrindavana, on the bank of Yamuna, gopis saw Vrindavana Vihari, epithet for Krishna, near their familiar Kadamba tree. Yogmaya adorned all the gopis from tip to toe. In fact, those gopis were not ordinary women. Maitreya asks, gopis had not regarded Krishna as Parabrahma. What was the basis for their passion then? Parashar says, when a wretched person like Shishupal, who always abused Lord Krishna, could find supreme position, there should be no doubt for gopis who had such a profound passion for Lord. So gopis arrived and gathered around Lord Krishna. To test their devotion and to enhance the honor of Kamdev, Krishna said to them, O gopis, the pure ones, it is not fit for you to stay here at this hour of night. Go and serve your husbands. Your duties must be first to your husbands, children and cows. They will be waiting for you eagerly. Go and console them. You can gain me by hearing, reciting, seeing, etc. You need not sit here. Go to your homes. Gopis, however, said, Govind, we have come to you leaving all the mundane lusts behind. Now going back is like ruining our lives. It is the greatest misfortune if someone returns to mundane affairs even after being at your feet. These words that reflected divine feelings of gopis pleased Lord. He began to enjoy their company. But a feeling of ego began to creep in the minds of gopis because of Lord's closeness. They began to assume themselves as highly fortunate. To remove their ego, Lord disappeared right among them. Pitiable condition of gopis in Krishna's absence. After the disappearance of Krishna, gopis were perplexed. Their hearts burned with desire. They had dedicated their entire selves in the feet of Lord. They were entirely merged in the love of Krishna. Thus driven by passion, gopis began to search Lord Krishna. They asked trees, creepers and vegetation for the whereabouts of their beloved. They then spotted his footprints at one place. Footprints of Radha were also there. Indeed, he would have carried her, that great fortunate one, on his shoulders. They thought. Lord had indeed, after disappearing from amidst gopis, taken Radha to an isolated place. She had then began to think herself superior to other gopis. So at one place, she said, O Lord, I can't walk now. My tender feet are tired. Kindly carry me on your shoulders to wherever you wish. At her request, Lord Krishna agreed to carry her on his shoulder. But as soon as she proceeded to ride, Lord disappeared from there also. Now, Radha began to cry and wail and fainted. At the same time, other gopis also reached there and found Radha lying unconscious on the ground. All of them, including Radha, then returned to the bank of Yamuna and began to wait for Krishna's appearance. Reappearance of Lord Krishna among gopis. When the beloved gopis burst into tears, Krishna's patience gave away. His heart melted at their condition and he appeared amidst them. A sweet smile played on his beautiful face. He wore a garland of fresh Vaijayanti flowers and yellow clothes. His beauty could have moved even Kamdev. Seeing their beloved Kanha once again amidst them, gopis got a new lease of life. All of them began to embrace Lord Krishna and thus quenched the fire of separation that was burning their bodies. Thereafter, along with the beauties of Vraj, Lord Krishna came to the bank of Yamuna. Gopis put their queries before him for solution. Lord Krishna said, "O beloved Gopis, I do not reciprocate to the desire of my beloved ones for physical love. Because of it their conscience remains always engrossed in me. Hence, I take to hiding even after meeting so that you could feel complete imbibement in me." Maharaj, from the words of Lord Krishna, Gopis forgot the pains of separation. From the closeness of their beloved, their lives were successful now. With those Gopis, Lord Krishna started Maharaj on the pious banks of river Yamuna. All the gods gathered in sky to witness that divine festival. Gopis were even more fortunate than Lakshmi. But even amidst crores of Gopis, who were eager to devote their everything to him, Lord Krishna completely refrained from desires, feelings and even actions. Thus Lord Krishna defeated even Kamdev and removed his ego. Salvation of Sudarshan and Shankaka. Parashar says, once on the occasion of Shivratri, Nand Baba and all other Gopas drove their carts with families and reached Ambikwana on a pilgrimage tour. There they took bath in the river Saraswati and with devotion worshipped Lord Shiva and Parvati. They also observed day-long fast and decided to pass their night on the bank of Saraswati. But a huge python inhabited that place. During the night the python emerged and caught hold of Nand's leg. Nand Baba cried loudly. All the Gopas gathered around him. He cried again, "Kanhaiya, this snake is all set to strangulate me. Save me." Lord Krishna touched the python with his feet and instantaneously the python vanished. In its place appeared a divine-looking human being. He said, "O Lord, I was a Vidyadhar named Sudarshan. I was so much obsessed with my beauty, youth, luxury and comforts that I used to insult others. One day I had derided at the ugly appearance of the sage Angira. So indignantly he cursed me to become a python. But, pleased by my realization of mistake, he had told that when God himself would touch me, I would regain my original appearance." Thereafter, Sudarshan went round the god, worshipped him and with his permission, departed to his abode. On another occasion, Lord Krishna arrived in Vrindavana during Vasant Ritu, spring season. There he took part in Vasantik Ras of spring season, with the Gopis. During Ras itself, a demon Shankachur tried to escape away, kidnapping some of the Gopis. A stampede resulted among Gopis. Hearing their noise, Lord Krishna ran after the demon, carrying a huge sal, shaurya, tree in his hands. In no time he overtook the demon and killed him by just one blow. He picked up the gem from demon's head and handed it to Balram. Salvation of Arishtasur. Once, Kansa sent a demon Arishtasur to Vrindavana. The demon arrived there in a bull's guise. That huge bull came to Vrindavana and began to terrorize the people with his loud sound. Seeing the bull, Balram said to Krishna, "Kanhaiya, I have never seen such a huge bull before." All the people began to cry for help. Lord Krishna consoled them and challenged the bull demon, "O fool, why are you terrorizing these cows and cowherds? I am going to shatter your ego." The challenge from Krishna pinched the demon. Tapping his hooves angrily, the demon attacked God. He wished to gore him, but Krishna held his horns and pushed him back. Then kicking the demon, Krishna killed him in no time. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.